Welcome back, everyone, to International Wealth Builders Radio Talk Show with your host, Michelle Estelle, the home buyer coach. And last segment, we were getting into generational wealth and just some of my thoughts about what's important about that and what the risks are in thinking about generational wealth versus each individual's ability to build wealth. And not looking at the downline about what my parents are going to create wealth for me and I create wealth for my kids. Oftentimes, I think it skips generations, and we kind of went through that in the last segment. So I do just want to put a little bit more time into that, just for food for thought. As I said, these are just things that I think about. I want to give you a little bit of background on my family and why I think that there's no guarantee that there's generational wealth if one generation has it and the next would not be guaranteed that that would be the case. And a little bit of story about that. So my paternal grandparents never owned a home. My grandfather was a janitor, and he worked for a family who owned many, many properties, heavy real estate investors of units, apartments, homes. And my grandparents, my paternal grandparents, lived in those homes and then did the maintenance at multiple properties, and they never owned their own. So they pretty much left the earth at a pretty, I mean, my grandfather died at 78. My grandmother died in her mid 80s. But they didn't have anything. Not really a dime to their name. And then my father, which this is his parents, my paternal grandparents, my father went into the military, and he purchased a home with his VA loan when he got out of the military. So his parents not having a home did not affect his ability to then purchase a home for his family. My father had a sister who had two sisters, actually, a half sister and a full sister, but his sister married someone that I would say was more wealthy than her brother. She married someone who was a little bit better off than her brother, and they purchased a home. So one family that had 3 children, and all 3 of those children end up being homeowners. My aunt and uncle, who were more well off, had a beautiful home, which, you know, as a kid, you kind of might compare, and they had a home which I would say was more substantial than the one that my parents had. Each of these people, my father and his sister, each had 4 children. In my family, 4 girls. In his sister's family, 3 girls and a boy. In my family, 3 of the 4 of us own homes. In my father's sister family, only 1 owns a home. The others did not achieve home ownership. In the family, my half aunt, my dad's half sister, she had 2 children, and they both owned a home. But the parent who had the most wealth in that generation had 4 children, of which only 1 obtained homeownership. And in the family that was in the lower income with the same amount of children, 3 of the 4 achieved homeownership. So now there's only 4 grandkids, and only they're just barely getting to the adult level, and none of them own a home currently. Our 4, the 3 of the 4 who own a home, had children at a young age. So now these adult children would, in order for them to depend on wealth from their parents, that generation, if we live as long as our grandparents and parents have lived into our 70s and 80s, they would be waiting to attain generational wealth from a previous generation, but they would be 60 before those things would be left to them as assets. Um, if the families are able to help with the down payment now, then that type of wealth can help earlier. But the type of wealth that you are leaving inherent as an inheritance um, may not help you, because if your parents live a long time, you will already have lived your life waiting for that inheritance. So, and then if your parents do live a really long time and they're very elderly and they aren't able to care for themselves, their assets may be depleted in order for them to have long-term care. So, I think sometimes it's just this tagline and this myth about generational wealth, and thinking if you didn't have the opportunity to own a home, that you're doomed. And your downline generations will never either. And that is 100% false. It also is 100% false that if the previous generations did own a home, that you will too. Now, we're going to be finishing up this segment, but I wanted to let you know on my maternal, my mother's side, that they did own a home, and they had 3 children, and 2 of the 3 bought their own home, and 1 inherited fully the parents' home. And so, you never know how generations will be able to affect or help each other, or what the struggles will be that each generation will have. But it's more about the education. Teach your kids about money, teach them about how important homeownership is, and also how rough it can be at times. There will be times that mortgages can't be paid and repairs can't be done. And there will be other times that you're just not prepared for what those repairs and maintenance might be. So that's my 2 cents on generational wealth and homeownership. Obviously, I believe that homeownership is just something to strive for and so wonderful. And I am willing to help anybody to attain that. And I wouldn't say anything negative about that. It is the best investment that you could ever make. So I'm glad you joined me today, and I hope you get to watch all segments on our TV distributions, and then join us again next month. Have a great day.